As you can probably tell from the glamorous backdrop behind me, I am currently away from the office and a bit ill, under the weather. So our plan had been to put nothing together on this weekend's Rugby Championship, looking ahead to the Women's World Cup in a week or so's time. However, obviously that game in Ellis Park was quite spectacular, so we wanted to do something. So Will went and spent his whole weekend putting stuff together just himself. You know, first it's been like completely his project, and then Sanzar got in the way and kind of copyright struck the whole thing and took the whole thing apart. So instead we've had to go back, or he's had to go back and rework the entire thing in a new format, which you're going to see here. Still going over all the same analysis points, we're going over everything as it was, but there may be just a handful of short clips. So I hope you enjoy this, and we'll be back in a few days' time for the continuation of the Rugby Championship and the Women's World Cup.
After 22 minutes, South Africa were looking at a point every 60 seconds. After 40 minutes, Wallabies fans were looking at their shoes, probably in floods of tears. After 73 minutes, Fraser McWright was looking at a turnover every 4 seconds. This was the perfect game to romanticise. From the Boks scoring after about 80 seconds and Wallabies fans no doubt shouting, "Get me out of this Schmidt hole," to the relief on the full-time whistle and a cry of, "I bloody love Joe Schmidt." The Wallabies broke a 62-year curse over Ellis Park, turning green and gold into gold and green, turning Tony frowns into Schmidt-eating grins. As we delve into what inspired Rolasio Erasmus to literally call his team dog shit in the post-match interview, what species Harry Wilson has morphed into, whether or not it's a coincidence that James O'Connor and Justin Bieber have had a resurgence at the same time, and most of all, what the hell just happened in Johannesburg. This is the sort of game that needs to be broken down semi-chronologically. It was the tale of Springbok dominance until it wasn't. So let's have a look into how the Wallabies problem solved to the extreme. We'll look into how the Springboks bought themselves so many tickets to the lottery in a moment, but first and foremost, I do want to look into how they so convincingly shredded the Wallabies to bits in the first 20 minutes. As well as implementing this weird space-time glitch where they jumped ahead a few frames every single time the camera angle changed, this is a beautiful touch by Marnie Libbok. The Boks have a clear 3v2 here with Andre Esterhazen acting as the first receiver. However, Marnie Libbok overrules the play that is initially called here and does something which is, let's say, beneficial to his team. I am hasty to call it a good idea as a fellow human being to Marnie, as what he does is he singles out Will Skelton and he runs at him. And I would just say that that is not particularly recommended, but it works in his favour here. He goes so flat to the line, essentially asking Skelton to just cream him here. Like, something probably has to be upsetting you to make a choice like this running into Will Skelton, so I hope everything's okay at home, Marnie. But what this does do is it leaves Jorgensson on his own here on the wing, and Apoleli Farsi's touch here is lovely. He holds his feet to the last second, knowing that Jorgensson's going to fly up at him and try and pressure the pass, just isolating Jorgensson on the wing, catching the ball and passing it cleanly for Orense to run in the early try. And it would be amiss to not bring up the fact that so much of this early Bok momentum came from a near perfect opening stanza from Grant Williams. He was placing his box kicks pretty much on a dime every single time he went for them. The Wallabies constantly backpedaling and just allowing for Tony Brown ball to come into play. Brown's Boks have spent all summer playing this particular trademark pod of 4 forwards here. However, they put a funny twist on it here and made it potentially even more powerful and opened up more possibilities for the future, as they played it off 10. That has so many benefits because it means you can get wider, you can potentially attack into some of the inside backs and take them out of the game, get some of the key decision makers in the opposition backline onto the floor nice and early. But there is another angle to this which you don't consider in the half second when you see the set for the first time. And that is that the ball isn't necessarily going to go through Marnie Libbok's hands, as Grant Williams throws a brilliant missed 3 ball to get Eben Etzebeth carrying here. And that already saves the Bok attack like 1 second. And as well as that, Etzebeth manages to offload out of the contact here, meaning that they're about 3 or 4 seconds ahead of the folding Wallabies defence, and they just can't get round in time. So with no chance for the Wallabies to fold, Nick White is completely on his own in the left wing, and it sets up a perfect piece of Peter Steff edge forwarding, as he manages to ride 2 tackles and still free his arm to offload to Esterhazen, who runs in the try with ease. A big part of how the Boks built this early lead is because they defended like this. The Wallabies seemingly about to kick long, O'Connor throws a hospital pass to Wicketow, who is hunted down by Creel whilst the ball's in in the air. When you're as physical as this Springbok team are, the easiest way to get front football without a scrum setting is to make big shots and catch the opposition behind the gain line. Honestly, I've rarely seen a team defend this aggressively before. And I don't just mean that in terms of their tackle tech and just melting people. I mean in terms of their choices in defence. It was purely about line speed rather than about drifting. So for this example here, the Wallabies have what looks like a 4-on-2. You can't really see it very well from this angle. But South Africa look at this and go, okay, cool, that's fine. They've got 4 men, we've got 2. We'll defend the first 2. We're going to fly off the line and force an error here, forcing James O'Connor to cut back inside, cutting off the option of him passing the ball over the top to free Tom Wright or Dylan Peach down this wing. South Africa's philosophy isn't to drift and wait for an extra pair of big burly men to come across so they can make the numbers up. Instead, it is to just sheerly pressurise and put in huge hits. It's what they're good at. It's their DNA. But as I alluded to earlier, this was a masterclass in problem solving from Joe Schmidt's men. You've got 8 120 kilogram men flying at you trying to kill you. How on earth do you stop them from doing that? Well, the first example of the men in gold guessing how to stunt the Springbok line speed came in the form of this, as they opt for their trademark switch back to the blind side, with Ikitau then dabbing a lovely kick over the top for Peach to chase. Now, as a winger, this is really difficult to defend because the pendulum system is based on having 2 men in the backfield, and it's really hard to organise exactly how you're going to do that if you don't know which of the 2 ways the team are going to play or whether or not they're going to run or kick. But it's an impossible conundrum because you have to leave some space somewhere. But the true light bulb moment came in Dylan's peach of a try. Once again, the boys in gold play 2 phases right, then 2 phases back to the left, in order to make South Africa at least think before they thump. They play a double boot here, with Diaka cuddling Tom Wright and Creel held by James Slipper's hardline. So Ali catches it and runs back into the channel that was previously held by Lou Diaka, and his offload here is kind of akin to the last phase of an attack in rugby league, where you're just keeping the ball alive, trying to find your kicker so you can get him to make a decision, as though a turnover is imminent. And the defence just kind of pauses. This isn't off a structured scenario, so they don't necessarily have the protocol that they all know where we're going to fly off the line and catch them behind there. Instead, nobody really wants to make that hero shot and potentially open up a gap elsewhere or get stepped by Ikitau or do anything daft in this scenario. I think we've all been in those situations on a rugby pitch before where you stop communicating with the people around you because this isn't a scenario you practice very often. And so Ikitau just kind of pauses and takes his time and makes eye contact with Jesse Creel. And obviously Ikitau is an extremely handsome man, so Creel buys this. But he forgets about the pretty much almost as handsome James O'Connor. Australia's oldest Justin Bieber lookalikes line here is yummy. Coming from outside of Jesse Creel's eye line and then just flicking the ball back up for Ikitau, knowing that he's drawn 2 men in here and that there's a good opportunity, there's a good chance that Ikitau is going to have some space. Ikitau remains Slickitau and puts Peach in the corner. It's a brilliant try by Australia and the first sign that they have a bit of hope of getting on the outside of this aggressive Bok D. After this score, the Schmidthouse gang got into their natural balling mojo. Now, remember that example earlier where Jesse Creel ran up and smashed Ikitau? The men in gold also used this to their advantage. The Wallabies here overloading the centre, sending both Kellaway and O'Connor down his channel, giving him 2 men to mark, knowing that Creel thrives in these scenarios where he can double job and sniff out attackers in the boot. With Creel out the game and Edwell marking 3 men, the winger blitzes slightly too hard, getting just ahead of the ball, allowing McDermott the opportunity to ball, almost leading to a try for Jorgensson, if not for a brilliant tackle by Arendse. This set play is superb, using Jorgensson as a secondary ball player, knowing that Edward van der Merwe is going to come up and try and block this passing lane in between Jorgensson and Tom Wright, so Jorgensson instead throwing a ball that, frankly, like any 10 would be proud of, over the top to Kellaway, and they nearly score from this. But regardless of that, the knock-on effect of this felt huge, as without this, I don't think you get the try that was eventually scored by Marco van Staden's sleep paralysis demon, Harry Wilson. Another significant moment in the build-up to this try is the weekly, oh shit, Angus Bell's on now moment that always happens. You know, that time when he gets his first carry of the game and he skips out of like 4 people's tackles and he just looks ludicrous and he's just bouldering around and the defence are just there like, oh God, we've got to tackle a literal hippopotamus now. Like, where are his ankles? You know, one of those situations, they happen every single week when Angus Bell comes off the bench. But a moment later, who should Australia ring to be their primary carrier but Hell's Bells? The gorgeous bit of this try is how layered it is. In behind Bell, there is Tom Wright as a primary distributor, and in behind Tom Wright is James O'Connor. They have 3 potential waves to this attack, and Eben Etzebeth wants to know who he can eat. Oxenche looks out for his front 5 friend and goes, don't worry mate, I'll help you out. I'll go for Tom Wright. And obviously Wabungi Mbanambi with his head in the spokes trying to tackle Angus Bell. As I say, one of the hardest men to tackle, especially one-on-one. You cannot be thinking about anything else other than just tackling him, getting to the floor. Harry Wilson's line here is brilliant. He just stays extremely square, Ox looking out the back, and Bell's timing is lovely, just tipping it onto him, and Wilson running the distance. The thing is, the Wallabies are such a dangerous team when they even find half a gap. With so many world-class broken field runners like Tom Wright, Joseph Suaalii and Tate McDermott in their team, if they even find a crumb of space, you could potentially just notch up 5 points on the board for them. But it wasn't just the Bok defence that they responded well to. Also, the Tony Brown attack. As the Wallabies shifted focus after the initial onslaught. Instead of trying to catch literally the biggest, most physical, most dynamic pack in the world behind the gain line every time and trying to physically dominate them, they decided instead, let's just contain them and maybe give one man at a time license to fly out of the line and put a bit of pressure on, like Nick White does here. And that also leads to occasional moments like the Joseph Suaalii intercept, where he flies out of the line a little bit, but everybody else is just focused on staying connected at all times. And the Springboks struggled to kind of think on the fly as they'd faced two different kinds of Wallaby D in this game. It also didn't help Rossi's cause that there were just occasional misfires in attack for the Springboks. Similarly to what I was saying earlier about the back line, usually a 5-metre line out to South Africa is the sort of thing that gets scoreboard operators nationwide warming their fingers up. Skelton does a brilliant job to halt the initial drive, although that doesn't make the Boks any less likely to score. They carry through Esterhuizen and he's chopped well by Suaalii. However, their timing's just a little bit off. Creel comes in as the outside latch, but just mistimes his impact slightly, falling over and unable to add to Andre's charge. They try route one again through Marks, only for him to be flopped on by Fraser McWright. Tom Hooper makes an excellent decision here, immediately spotting his back row buddy on the floor, knowing there's a chance that if he contests, Kifo Ben will tell him to leave the ball, as there's an Australian serial killer's body in the way. Libbok tries to get through the breakdown and kill the gold fold, but it just doesn't work. Frost and Hooper not taking the bait. As Etzebeth carries, Mostert purely targets Jorgensson on his latch here, which is a wise idea, taking a crucial member of the Golden defensive line out of the game, one of their faster players, somebody who could potentially cover multiple men on the next phase and getting him on the deck. However, he does this with a half expectation that Tom Hooper will be on the floor from the previous phase. The flanker able to get across, lock onto the ball and generate a potentially game-saving turnover. However, the moment of the game wasn't the Suaalii intercept that potentially turned it on its head, but instead one split-second, real-time epiphany that we all had. I've been reluctant to say this for a month or two now because I've just had such a good feeling about the kid, but this was the day. There was one specific moment in this game where we all realised collectively that Max Jorgensson isn't just excellent, he is world class. Strangely, the moment where Jorgo broke Marnie Libbok's ankles wasn't his coming of age. Instead, it was this, his defence in the lead up to Tom Wright's clinching try. As soon as South Africa spread the ball to Esterhuizen, Jorgo remained so composed, backtracking, allowing Andre to just come at him, refusing to actually make a tackle so he isn't taken out of the game, knowing that Tom Hooper is tracking across at some speed. Once Esterhuizen shifts it onto Jesse Creel, Jorgensson accelerates, not worrying about Grant Williams outside him, knowing that the best defender of all time, the touchline, is there to take care of him, instead just staying in between the two centres. This means that Jesse Creel has to go for the over-the-top basketball style pass to try and get it back into space where Esterhuizen could potentially try and finish a try. Jorgensson just gets his hand in the air, makes it difficult, gets in the eye line, and that is a much harder pass to catch than just a simple push pass that you're taught to do when you're 5 years old. But that's not possible because Jorgensson is in the way. Esterhuizen fumbles it, it falls into Tom Wright's hands. Tom Wright goes full Tom Wright, tries to take absolutely everybody on. This time Damian Willemse booking his trip to ankle A&E, and Tom Wright getting his face on the Sunday morning front pages. But the impressive thing about this is we have seen so many young wingers come through who are uber talented and gotten really excited about them as they've come along in real time. Look, even as recently as like Louis Biel-Biarré, he came through into the French team as an 18, 19-year-old kid who you looked at and you thought, he's brilliant, he's flared, he's fast, he's powerful, he's brilliant. He's got that X factor that everybody loves to watch. But it was clear to see from the start that he had bits to work on, which he's only recently sort of ironed out of his game, about his backfield management, about some of his decision-making in defence, his support lines, about A few of the things that didn't just require him tapping the ball on his foot and chasing after it like a border collie. Jorgensson is the opposite to this kind of winger. He's 20 years old and he's already brilliant at all of these things. The fact that he can score that try that he scored at Twickenham to win the game last year, the fact that he can have moments like that step on Marnie Lebok to score a crucial try at Ellis Park, just shows that his ceiling's even higher than we probably all thought it was. He's already so mature and solid in the Wallaby jersey, playing at international level. I'm just so excited to see what's to come for him, because moments like winning tries are a bonus with Max Jorgensson. This was 62 years in the making, an all-timer day in Wallaby folklore. Campo, Liner, Larkham, Hooper, Horan, Gregan and Gitto, none of these got to experience a win at Ellis Park. Instead, there was only one man who could set up the Wallabies to down the world champions in their backyard. Finally, it was Joe who conquered Joburg. Hello, it's me, Willow, and the guy from the video that you just watched, that Squid Rugby video on the bloody Wallabies and the Springboks and all of those other guys. I hope you enjoyed that. I hope that was a fun exercise for you. I hope that was a good use of the last 16 minutes of your evening or morning or wherever it is where you are. That was a difficult video to put together. It was really enjoyable, but a bit of a slog. I'm sorry, it took longer than was anticipated. I was intending to get this out on like Sunday-ish, but hey ho, never mind. The patrons' names aren't here, unfortunately, like they usually would be, so just pretend that they're there and say a huge thanks to them. They make this entirely possible. So and also in the Discord group, which is for patrons only, if you're a patron, please come and join us. If you're not a patron, please come and join us by joining the Patreon. They got a small documentation of how this video making process was for me, i.e. they got an update on when I got my Tesco meal deal on Saturday afternoon. So anyway, have a great evening. Thank you for watching that, and hopefully we will see you more for more rugby.